Welcome to Kidmissing TV. Today we're going to talk about the Oakland County child killer, aka the babysitter killer. He got that moniker because he apparently fed the kids. Mark Stebbins, 12, vanished February 15, 1976. He was found dead 4 days later. Let's see. Let me go through each children. Okay. Mark Stebbins had been missing for 4 days when his body was found near an office complex in Southfield. This is in Michigan. The 12-year-old spoke to his mother on the phone at 1:30 p.m. on the 15th of February. He called her to let her know that he was leaving the American Legion Hall in Ferndale to head home. According to reports, he never arrived home. His mother called Ferndale police at 11 p.m. that night to report him missing. His body was discovered on the 19th by a businessman named Mark. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. Boetighigheimer. Once again, he thought it was a mannequin. He discovered it was a child's body. He was walking toward the mall because he was going to the drugstore in the mall. Somebody walked around that parking lot with their dog about 9:30 that morning. This was about 11:45 in the morning, and said my dog would have found him if he had been there at that time. So he had been sexually assaulted. The county prosecutor said Mark's body was washed by an autopsy team washing away any fingerprints. Well, hopefully they can get male DNA in a liquid form, you know what I mean? Mark was suffocated. The murder of Jill Robinson. Jill Robinson had been missing for 4 days before her body was found off the side of Route I-75. The 12-year-old left home, and he was also 12, by the way, on December 22, 1976, after an argument. Carol Robinson, Jill's mother, said that they were arguing because Jill had been asked to make biscuits for dinner, and she refused. I can still hear my mother saying this. Carol told Jill to leave until she became part of the family. Jill went to her room, got dressed, packed up clothes and a blanket into a denim bag, and left. She rode her bike away from home. She was spotted by a family friend at a hobby shop just 4.5 blocks away from her home. Her father called police at 11:30 that night to report her missing. She was also seen at the Donut Depot on Maple Road between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. that morning. Again, her body was found off I-75, actually north of Big Beaver Road, the day after Christmas. She was shot at close range in the head with a shotgun. The murder of Christine Mihalik, Mihelich. She had been missing for 19 days before her body was found in a snowbank in Franklin Village. She was 10. She was last seen on January 2nd, 1977. She left the bowling alley where her mother worked to go to a 7-Eleven store. Her body was discovered by a mail carrier at the end of a dead-end street on January 21st. Her body was so frozen, officials had to wait until the next day to perform an autopsy. There were no signs of violence, and she was in the same clothes. Her body was on its back, knees drawn up. She had not been sexually assaulted. Her cause of death was listed as suffocation. Jeez. Timothy King. Timothy King had been missing for 7 days before his body was found in Livonia ditch. The 11-year-old was the fourth victim to be connected to this killer. He was last seen on March 16, 1977. He left his Birmingham, Michigan home with 30 cents he borrowed from his older sister. He left for the Hunter Maple Pharmacy. The trip was about 3 blocks, and he made it off dead. The clerk at the pharmacy said she sold Tim candy at 8:30 in the evening, and he left through the back door into the dark parking lot. Before Tim left home, he asked his sister to leave the door ajar for him. His sister also left home that night. Their parents returned to the home about 9 p.m. to find the door ajar and no sign of Tim. The family searched everywhere for the boy. By 9:15 the next morning, police called out a task force. Tim was the 7th child to go missing in the area, and tensions were at an all-time high. Wow. Tim's father talked about how he played basketball, and he has a game one Saturday, but he missed practice today. That was Thursday. He was in a school play. He was an achiever and a participator, and they wanted him to come home. His body was found March 23, 1977, in a ditch along Gill Road, about 300 feet south of 8 Mile Road in Livonia. He was found by a motorist just a short distance away from a very busy intersection. He was wearing the same clothes. His skateboard was found about 15 feet away. You know, his parents wanted him back. They got him back, just not in the way they wanted. The autopsy revealed that Tim had been fed his favorite meal. This is why they call him the babysitter killer. Kentucky Fried Chicken, cleaned and groomed thoroughly. That's another reason, before he was suffocated. It was evidence Tim had been sexually assaulted. It was after Tim's murder the police knew they were investigating a serial child killer. Okay, they had 2 people of interest, Frank Sheldon of Grosse Pointe and Jerry Richards, a teacher in Port Huron. Sheldon owned much of North Fox Island, and Richards recruited young boys to fly to the island, according to investigators. Okay, so they were 2 baddies that worked together. Sheldon built an airfield with a landing strip, added a docking area, and constructed cabins on the island. He had a private jet and flew children from Charlevoix to the island, where he had a filming operation for child pornography. Sheldon fled the country in 1976 and was never prosecuted. He died in 1996. Richards was prosecuted for kidnapping and has since died. Investigators do not believe either man is the Oakland County child killer, but one theory suggests the killer could be someone they victimized on the island. Okay. Okay. Former Wayne County Detective Corey Williams said that they were the first to look at pornography and pornography rings, pedophilia, as being a motive in this crime. We put quite a bit of time and effort into that. Were these kids filmed, pictures taken? Were they passed around? We don't know at this point. But we did put a lot of time and effort into that. On March 29, 1977, 3 Michigan state detectives flew to Joliet, Illinois to speak with an unnamed man in the Statesville Correctional Institution who had been convicted of distributing porn. Police wanted to find out if the Oakland County child killer victims had been used to create pornographic films or still photos. and where that material would be marketed if that was the case. The man provided detectives with information on where the material would be marketed and who might have knowledge of it. He said he doubted the murderer, who he described as a psychotic, would be interested in that. He felt there was too much police attention on child pornography to find any market at that time. He is quoted as telling the detectives, this is a direct quote, "He is going to keep it up. Just why in the hell does he do it all in one locality except he is screaming for you to catch him?" Dr. Bruce Danto, a psychiatrist in Detroit, received an anonymous letter that said, "I know who the killer is." The person claiming to be the killer's roommate sent the letter in 1977. Dr. Danto shared the letter with investigators. The author of the letter only identified himself as Allen, Allen, and referred to the killer as Frank. Allen said he went with the killer when he looked for boys. He said he was not with Frank when he kidnapped 4 murder victims. The letter had many spelling and punctuation errors. Wow. Yeah, it's bad. This is a quote. "I am desperate, Desperite. That is not remotely how you spell desperate. And nearly gone crazy." Lovely grammar there. "And haven't got no place left to turn." Again, terrible grammar. He wrote, "Please don't give up the killer to the police. You must help me, as there is no one else I can turn to. This is for real. I know who the killer is. I live with him. I am his slave." Wow. Like I said, the spelling, grammar, I'm thinking they pronounced it, but Allen said he met Frank in Vietnam and that the war had twisted Frank's mind. He killed a lot of little kids then with medals for it, burned them to death, bombed them with napalm. Ouch. He wants the rich people, like people in Birmingham, Michigan, to suffer like all of us suffered, to get nothing back for what we did for our country," Allen wrote. "He's not a monster like you think. He really loves children, especially the little girl, for 3 weeks, not doing it because he hates children, but doing it because hates everybody else out there." Oh boy. Ooh, that's more of the letter. It's, oh man, do you know how hard it is to read something so ungrammatical? When you are a grammar Nazi and you were raised by a grammar Nazi. It's horrendous. Not to mention the spelling and it's difficult to read something like that. Allen asked Danto to contact him through the newspapers using the code words "trees to bloom in 3 weeks," according to a Ludington Daily News report. He received a call from Allen on April 10th, and the two agreed to meet the next night at a bar. Allen said he would bring Polaroid pictures that would prove Frank killed the 4 children if Danto brought a letter of immunity from then-Governor William Milliken. Allen never showed up at the bar. He said the man was frightened, not cool and composed. The doctor does not believe it was a hoax. And then we have Archibald Edward Sloan. They believe he has ties to the killer. They found a hair in his car, a 1966 Pontiac Bonneville, that is a DNA match to evidence found at 2 of the Oakland County child killer crime scenes, Mark Stebbins and Timothy King. The hair is not Sloan's, but police believe it belongs to someone he knows. It is believed that Sloan worked at a garage or gas station near 10 Mile and Middlebelt roads during the time of the killing spree. The 81-year-old man was sentenced to life in prison in 1985 on 2 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct. The charges were for an assault that took place on October 1st, 1983. Sloan is alive and still serving that sentence. Why don't they say, look, you've been in jail since 1985. If you tell us who the person was that was riding in your car that could have left their hair, we will call it time served. I mean, he's in his 80s. For decades, everybody believed that Christopher Bush was the killer. He was a convicted pedophile who lived in. Bush's name first came up in 1977 when Gregory Green was arrested on child sexual assault charges. Green told police Bush killed Stebbins. Bush was arrested, and while in custody, he confessed to sexually assaulting a child. Green was convicted and sentenced to life in prison for sexually assaulting a child. Bush faced the same charges and agreed to a plea deal. Bush was sentenced to probation for sexually assaulting James Vincent Gunnels, who was a child at the time. Gunnels told police Bush assaulted him at the Bush family cottage on S Lake in northern Michigan. Police got a call that Bush was at S Lake with 3 young boys just 3 days before Tinking was found dead. Bush killed himself in 1978. Police sources told Local 4 News that Bush's suicide appeared suspicious and may have been a murder. Blood-stained ropes were found at Bush's home. The ropes were kept in an evidence locker for years before they went missing. Photos from the suicide scene also show a drawing that was pinned to Bush's wall. It appeared to be a drawing of a tortured child. Some believe the child resembles Mark. In 2012, police said there is zero evidence suggesting Bush was the killer. His DNA does not match the physical evidence in the case. Okay. James Vincent Gunnels told, again, Local 4 News, in 2012 that he had nothing to do with the murders. Gunnels' DNA is a mitochondrial DNA match to a hair found on Christine Halleck's body. Mitochondrial match means that the hair belongs to Gunnels or a male relative on his mother's side. And that's true. And he was only 16 at the time. So he had no way to hold him for all the days that they were held. So who else in his family? They need to figure out who else in his mother's side of his family could be. In August of 1999, a team of experts flew to Wyoming to exhume another man's body. DNA samples were taken, but were not a match. And, I mean, they have really worked this case. Really worked this case. Now, I'm going to give you a little editorial from me on this case. Here's what I think. I believe the 2 boys were killed by the same person. They have the exact same MO. Fed, cleaned, suffocated, raped. Not necessarily in that order. They were killed by the same person. I don't necessarily believe the 2 little girls were. That's just my opinion. I mean, is it likely that there were 2 child killers? Well, yeah. Because, remember, there are predilections. Most of them don't kill or molest both genders. They just don't. So, there are some exceptions, but overall, no. So, Thank you for joining me. I hope that I was able to give you insight into a fascinating case. God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you again. Bye, guys. Mwah.